But a lot of Sooner fans, they're looking at all these numbers. They're looking at how many guys have entered into the portal. 6 wide receivers, and Bauer Sharp, who's our leading wide receiver. That's a big deal, and that sounds like a big deal with the number of players that we've had enter into the transfer portal. It sounds like it's time to panic. But here's where I'm going to get into why we shouldn't panic. I know I just listed off all the guys that are leaving, but most of the players hitting the portal are on the offensive side of the ball. This is an offense this past season that was 121st in total offense, 94th in scoring, 131st in sacks allowed, and 122nd in passing offense. There's a lot more offensive stats that I could list off to prove to you how bad this offense was this last year, but I don't have to do that because you guys are Oklahoma fans and you saw that all season long. You know how bad this offense is. Even though I think a lot of these wide receivers and even Jackson Arnold, I am and still I have been and still will be a Jackson Arnold supporter, and I truly believe that guy has talent, and I think in the right system, which I think Ben Arbuckle has the right system, that Jackson Arnold could be good. And I think with these wide receivers, I think that they all are very good wide receivers. But let's not act like we're losing a whole lot of production, because all wide receiver stats combined from this last season, all 6 wide receivers that we're losing, rack up an entire 694 yards and 3 touchdowns. Bauer Sharp bumps that up to, our leading receiver. He bumps that up to 1,018 yards and 5 touchdowns total on the season. That is our entire receiving corps all together that's leaving. We are losing an entire room of wide receivers that, as a whole, this past season combined for less than the production of any one of the top 20 receivers that are leading receivers in the FBS. I mean, that doesn't mean that those players wouldn't have put up big numbers in 2025, but maybe this staff wants to clean house just a little bit. And we have to look at these guys and also recognize that there's a lot of moving parts. A lot of the speculation that, these guys are faking injuries is nonsense. There's no evidence for that. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. There's discussions between the players and their coaches, their friends and their teammates, their families. There's a lot of discussion and things that go on behind the scenes that we will never know about with these guys when they plan and they make this decision to transfer out. And so we have to recognize that. It seems like, and I understand where the speculation comes from, that, these players were just faking injuries, that all of a sudden we see Andrel Anthony running routes and he's just fine. Just remember, maybe he still wasn't cleared to play just a few weeks ago. Maybe he wasn't, or maybe he did make his decision a couple of weeks ago. But I don't think that's a bad thing when you've been out all season long to hold off maybe the last game or even the last 2 games. I don't think that's a bad thing, and I don't think we should criticize a guy for deciding to do something like that to plan ahead for his future, if that was the case. We don't know that that's the case. Some of this exodus may just be the fact that Ben Arbuckle is looking for a certain kind of guy, and that's these guys that are leaving just aren't it. And maybe he's suggesting to them, hey, I'm not sure how much use you will be in this system. I'm not sure how good of a fit you are in this system. So we might have to have you just go ahead and transfer out if you want to keep on producing. Otherwise, we'd love to keep you around. It's not that they're always shoving players out. Sometimes it's just, hey, I don't know if there's a whole lot of playing time in the future for you, or I don't know that you're going to fit so well with this system. I want to give it a shot, but just so you know, it might just be a shot that ends up plummeting your stock in the future. So there's a lot of things that go into that. And maybe there's already some certainty that there's certain guys that are coming to fit this scheme. There's certain guys that are planning on coming to Norman, and there's kind of that insider information about that we don't know about. There's a lot of speculation going into it from the fans, and I think a lot of the speculation needs to stop. I also think that there's a lot of fans calling for coaches' jobs, which seems really crazy to me, because we had one bad season under this coaching staff where you look around at why we had such a bad season, and yes, you can blame the coaches for a lot of it, but overall, I mean, this was one bad season, And when you just go back one season ago, the biggest thing that kind of splits the two was the fact that we went from Jeff Lebby, offensive mastermind, over to Seth Luttrell, and I think that's the biggest one. But anyways, some fans, I think they're kind of calling for jobs even just because we've lost all these wide receivers. Emmett Johnson being one of them. I think that's crazy talk. I think we have to understand that this year was an anomaly. This year was kind of an outlier. And so, I don't think that's really the right way to go. Start calling for coaches' jobs as a fan base. And I think that some fans are even believing that not just from the exodus that we've seen, but some fans believe that just because we haven't had commits already, that we're just failing as a coaching staff. Guys, just remember, it's been less than a week since the portal opened. It just opened a few days ago on Monday. So let's back up, take it slow, understand that the portal takes time. And we have to understand that sometimes, those good players, they're going to take their time and get their decisions right. And the good schools like OU are going to take their time too to make sure that they get the right players that are coming in that fit a certain criteria. And another narrative going around in the fan base is that just because they aren't big names that we're going after, just because they're not these quote-unquote big names, doesn't mean we shouldn't go after them. Not only that, but sometimes some of your big names aren't going to come this cycle. There's another cycle of the transfer portal that will hit after these bowl games and stuff. So that later cycle, that might be where some of your bigger names come from. That may be what Oklahoma's waiting for. There might be some inside information that, hey, I know we really need these wide receivers right now, or we really need a tight end, or we really need an offensive lineman. We really need whatever. You fill in the blank. But, hey, I think that this guy from Ohio State is going to plan to leave, but he's just waiting around until after the bowl game, after the playoffs, or maybe a guy from Indiana or Texas. Who knows? There's all kinds of players that are going to be entering the transfer portal after the playoffs, after their bowl games. John Mateer being one of those that, it seems like there might be some speculation that he's going to be hitting the portal. And if he does, he's coming to Oklahoma. But right now, they still have to finish their bowl games. So just understand that there's some guys that aren't going to enter the transfer portal this time around. They might wait until the next opening of the transfer portal, and I believe that's up in the spring too. I don't have that date pulled up in front of me, but just recognize that there is another transfer portal window that you might see some of these quote-unquote big names. Not only that, but just remember, there's guys, we can pull up some examples from Oklahoma. You got Baker. Baker wasn't a big name. Drake Stoops was not a big name. He was a walk-on. Of course, he's, I guess, has the big name tied to him, but he wasn't a big-time recruit or anything. He was a walk-on. Jacob Jordan, who's on our team right now, who we've seen some glimmers of hope coming out of him, he's a walk-on. Xavier Robinson worked his way from the practice team to working into a starter role. So, just recognize that there's a lot of smaller names, and I could go down a list of a bunch of different names that they were maybe some. Cam Ward was a 0-star. Let that sink in, and that dude just now won some awards tonight as I'm speaking, but he just won some awards this week. So, just looking around, recognize that sometimes those guys that don't seem like a home run hit end up being a home run hit. So just recognize that. And again, good players are going to take their time. Those good players, the ones that we really want, they're going to take their time. And Oklahoma is going to take their time to find those good players. So let all that sink in. Don't panic too much just based on all of that. Hey Sooner fans, did you enjoy this video? Well, go ahead and hit that like button and go ahead and hit that subscribe button. What are you doing if you've made it this far and haven't already? You should be able to find that subscribe button over here. And then if you want to see full episodes, we've got those up here and clips right down here. So go check that out. But we thank you all so much for all the love, all the support. We'll catch you next time. Boomer.